All right. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you guys for joining us here today.
All right. So just so you know the format, we will get to as many questions as we can in the 30-minute block. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt us. And then also to the media who have joined us as well, please remember to raise your hand within the Zoom platform or send us a message through the chat. My cell phone is in the chat as well, if that's helpful, to send me a text. And we are going to go ahead and start with questions for Corey. And Jennifer, go ahead and kick us off.
Hey, Corey. What kind of opportunities do you see now with this new Spire ride?
A lot. I mean, that's a broad answer, but seeing when I was at Ganassi mounting my seat in the 500 car, I asked those guys if they can take a ball pen hammer and some Scotch-Brite and scuff the paint up and make some dents in it, because I wasn't used to driving anything that nice. So, just little things like that. I mean, the nicest cars I've ever had. It'll be the best motors I've ever had, and the group of leadership from top to bottom is. There's really no reason why we can't execute and be in the conversation for the guys who might be able to point their way into the playoffs.
Is this your best opportunity so far of your Cup career?
Well, Jenner, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but the bar hasn't been set very high. So, but yes, it is by far. It's something to race. It's just, we're not going out there hoping people wreck to finish 25th. We're going to go in there and be racing in the top 20 each and every week with the big guys.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you, I asked Blaney the same thing. You were involved in that accident at the end of the 500 last year. Was there any sort of processing that you had to do to get through it? What was that like after the accident for you?
It's part, you can chalk it up as part of the gig, right? Everybody's going to say that. But, even before that wreck, if I was in it or not, Daytona and Talladega are places where you hug the wife for an extra couple of seconds and you pull the belts a little bit tighter just as part of the game. And that's also why the fans gravitate to it and love it, because there is that element of danger more so than the other places we go. But, I think that I can turn the conversation a little bit over to the NASCAR R&D side, how much work they've been making our cars to be safe for Ryan to take a hit like that and walk away. And just go to show the work that John Padillac and those guys in NASCAR and John Probst are doing to keep us safe.
Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, Jen.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Matt Weaver. Go ahead, Matt.
What's up, Corey? Kind of an unorthodox question for you, for a story I'm working on. What sort of memories, if any, strong memories do you have of watching your dad back in the old Busch series in the 90s?
Yeah, great question. We used to always go, obviously before the whole Daytona infield remodel, there was a little field that we always used to play football in. We'd get, anybody that was under 12 years old, we'd play tackle football and raise hell. But, my dad won three times at Daytona. And usually every single one of those times I was in the grandstands getting sunburnt, right? I had a white nose with SPF 45 caked on my face. But, those were some of the best memories I remember, going to, certainly being in victory lane with your dad's really cool. A lot of them I don't remember super vivid, but there's some pictures to pull up and rehash some memories. But, it's cool to eventually be making memories with my son the same way my dad did with me.
Thanks, bud.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Bob Pockris. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, Corey, what have you seen in the shop that makes you more optimistic now than before?
Well, every step along the way, every building block that they add to Spire Motorsports keeps on making me more optimistic, because, when we were first doing it, we didn't know people, we didn't know cars, we didn't know motors. We just, they had the vision and I want to be a part of it. So to be employee number 001 at Spire Motorsports, to, hearing Steve Letart's loud mouth down the hall as we speak, it certainly makes it feel pretty good. But, when I'm talking to Sparks and he's talking to Matt McCall and running through setups on what Kurt Busch is going to run, and we're comparing notes from what we've had for, that's the stuff that I've never had access to. And I'm just excited to see the raw speed that we have and then adjust accordingly from there.
And, with your family being involved in the seat business, how would you describe how seats have evolved over the last 10 or 15 years?
Well, I think you could probably draw the market 20 years ago, the Daytona 500, right? When Earnhardt passed away was when NASCAR was tired of losing guys, and they had to lose the big dog to get some fire underneath of them. But we haven't lost one since. And that just, it's everything. It's seat belts, it's mounting, it's just awareness on the areas of the car that might have been overlooked just to get a competitive advantage. They're not overlooking those, and they're taking driver priority. They're making driver priority the top of the list. So, seats, obviously, I've watched them develop since I was a little kid, and I've been in a lot of the processes my dad's done with SFI tests and things like that to develop stronger and lighter seats. And then obviously the carbon fiber seats came to the mold here recently. So, I really think it all trickles down from NASCAR's just proactive sense on driver safety.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Mark Garrow with PRN. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Good morning, Corey. Do you get the sense that people are taking this team seriously? I mean, given what Spire has done in the past few years, and you guys have said, no, this is not the same old, but are they taking this team as serious as you think they should?
Two answers to that, Mark. One, I wouldn't be sitting here today still as a Cup driver if I cared what anybody else thought about what I was doing. And B, if people don't take it seriously now, talk to them in 6 months and let me know how serious they're going to take it then.
So what have you set for goals now as this team? You start to see the cars, right? They're the best stuff you've ever had. The engines, you got crew chiefs, you got people to bounce stuff back off. You've got things you've never had before. Have your goals changed from what they were in the fall, feeling optimistic, to now seeing what you have to work with? Have those goals changed?
That's a good question. They've gotten better. So, originally, I think we were looking at somewhere around, 24th to 26th was kind of my worst case. That's kind of what I signed up for. It was like, okay, we're going to build this and be a 3-year program, get in here, build to here, end up here, and then on, right? But, when we get Sparks on board, when we get a Hendrick engine deal signed up, when we get the alliance with Ganassi signed up, like every one of those steps has been 2 or 3 positions in my brain up the lineup. And I think that from the top, TJ and Jeff and Steve, they don't have any necessarily expectations like we have to run 18th or we're not checking the boxes. The only people that have high expectations internally is just, I think, myself, Sparks, and our engineer, Roy, on where actually we think we could run and put a number on it, right? I think that, some weeks we go to Martinsville, we go to Bristol, we go some other places where, go to Kansas. I'd hate to think we can't be in the top 12, top 15, and when you miss it occasionally, you'd be somewhere 18th to 22nd, but just keep stacking pennies. And I think that if we don't have any mechanical failures and I don't make any mistakes behind the wheel and just kind of save face in the road courses. And, my goal for there is top 20s every road course into the playoffs. And I think that if we can average, 18th to 21st place finish throughout the regular season, we should be in conversation for a fringe playoff spot.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Marty with ROC Sports. Go ahead, Marty.
Thank you. Hey, Corey. Hope you're doing well. 2 questions for you. Number 1, what's the value that Jamie McMurray brings into Spire Motorsports for the Daytona 500 as a past champion of it?
I mean, that guy's got a Harley JRL trophy, and he's got the big one that everybody wants, So I think that there's a lot of layers to what Jamie Mack can bring. One, he's been on the Fox side for the past couple of years, so he does race Hub often. And anytime you can get people in your corner that are in the media and are out there portraying the sport in a positive light, like Jamie Mack is, can be good for us internally here at Spire Motorsports. So that's off the track. And then on the track stuff, obviously the guys got the job done several times. Won the Coke 400, the Firecracker 400, whatever you wanted to call it, a couple of times. He's won the 500. So picking his brain, and I definitely in those competition meetings with Kurt and Ross and Jamie, I'll definitely be doing a lot more listening than talking here in a couple weeks.
And then there's always that sort of underdog story in the Daytona 500. It's not a matter of if the big one happens, it's a matter of when. You missed the big one in last year's Daytona 500. So as a driver, do you want to be in front of the big one or behind the big one that could help you get near the front for a chance to win?
Flip a quarter, man. It's, as much as, I've got my game plan that seems to work. The last couple of speedway races, we got caught up on the last lap, but I'd rather get caught up on the last lap, fighting for a top 10 spot than be up there racing, try to get stage points and get collected early. And there's really only, you go back and do some diagnosis of crashes, there's really only 2 or 3 guys ahead of the big one, right? So if you're not in those first 2 rows, odds are you're going to get piled in it. So, I'll find a couple riding buddies and we'll do my normal deal. And, when there's a little bit to go, we feel like time's right, I'm going to yank the belts as tight as I can and jam it up in there and see what happens.
Thanks for your time, man. Have a great speed weeks.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Kelly Crandall. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thanks, Amanda. Hey, Corey, you have made the comment previously about building with this team, being a part of building with this team. Just curious, how much input does that mean that you'll have, and what can you bring in that regard to the team? I mean,
they're not really putting any reins on me right now, which might be good in a way and that might be bad in a way. But I've built a sign for out front. I mean, I've had input on paint schemes. I've had input on personnel who they hired a little bit. I let those guys hire the people who they want to hire for sure. But to be involved with every step of the process, from not a nut and bolt in the shop to a couple cars and wrapped haulers and toolboxes and probably 25 people hustling and busting around trying to get ready for Florida here. So it's pretty good it makes it feel good, because I feel like this is the most appreciated I've been, or I guess my input has been and my experience has been in anywhere I've been in my racing career.
And then you used the word alliance with Ganassi, and I just wanted to clarify, just how deep will that go between these 2 teams?
I guess we'll find out, right? But we're getting cars from them. We're getting engines from down the street here. So, I think the alliance verbiage is probably more so, what the access that Ryan Sparks has access to, obviously, and he seems to be happy with it. He seems to feel like he has the tools to work with to make our race cars go as fast as he can make them go. And we've got a Hawkeye here at the shop, which is obviously a big asset to utilize and maximize and get as much aerodynamic gain as we possibly can, and just get those pennies, right? Just put another one on the stack. And I think everybody on February 1st thinks they can win the Daytona 500, but I think we keep our goals in check, but also, why not us? And then we got to go turn around for the road course and go to the Homestead and on in. And, I think it'll take 7 or 8 weeks to really figure out where we settle in and who guys will be racing around consistently each and every week.
Thanks, Corey.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Thank you. Corey, a couple questions. When a driver's in a situation where they're make the move in better equipment after having to, I guess, be in control of things or be more cautious in the past, how much does that open things up for you as a driver? And what is the danger of trying to grab too much when you talk about stacking pennies, going after dimes and quarters at times?
Well, I think this is a unique situation for any driver to be in, because, when you make the jump, if you will, when you're sitting in a conference room at Spire Sports Management in Cornelius, and they're telling you what their vision are, but, you can't see anything tangible on paper or actually in real life. It took some faith on my end, but they also took some faith in their end by hitching their wagon to me and vice versa. So, it's essentially a brand new team, which is why I kind of say that it's unique, because there is no previous results that we can pull from that I could look at and be like, okay, we're going to get a little bit better here, and run there. It's what do we have? What do we got to work on? And how do we make it better for the next, not just this year, right? The next gen car, and figure out some process with that to jump up, to hit the ground running in that regard. So, there's a lot of things to think about, but I think there is going to be something to it with a little more accomplishment, with not necessarily being handed the keys to somebody's car that's already running and hopping in and going, versus getting your hands dirty and building something and see how you stack up.
Also, you mentioned your dad's success at Daytona, and obviously it was 20 years ago, Earnhardt's accident, but your dad won the Busch race the day before. So I think you referenced, I'm guessing you were there. Would you have been there the next day, or what do you recall? I think you would have been 9 years old at that time of an event that happened to Dale at a place that you had been at that day or the day before.
Yeah, so I remember exactly where I was. It wasn't at the track. We went. So I guess apparently you do go to Disney World whenever you win Daytona, because Dad took us to, not Disney World, but we went to Islands of Adventure as a family. And I remember we were sitting underneath the Hulk ride. Anybody's been there knows which one I'm talking about. There's like those little huts that sell all like the little trinkets and the coffee mugs and the little foam fingers and stuff. And there was a little TV about this big watching, playing the last lap of the race. And we're watching it. And Dale gets hooked, and it wasn't 10 minutes later, Dad's phone starts going, and we loaded up and we left and started heading. We drove back to North Carolina, and Dad was on the phone the entire time. So I got goosebumps sitting here talking about it, because it was like one of those things like, where were you? I mean, everybody kind of knows where they watched the last lap of that 2001 Daytona 500. And, I think like a lot of other racers, kids kind of remember where they were at in that day. And it was pretty cool. My dad won the race the day before. And, it's hard to not think about what the sport would be like if that guy was still around.
And one last thing is how did that affect it as a young child, just trying to comprehend that? Maybe you could, maybe you couldn't, but that your dad had been on that same track, your dad had won the day before. Is it just the racer mentality still kicks in even as a 9-year-old, or what was going through your head in the sense that was, that could have been your dad in a sense?
That's a deep question, Dustin. I hadn't even thought about that. I don't remember what a 9-year-old thinks like, but I don't recall what feelings, that wasn't a thought that made me want to be or not want to be a race car driver. And also, I think being 9 years old, I didn't understand the impact that Dale Earnhardt had in the sport, because you're just getting into it. And my dad was a Saturday guy for a lot of his career. So I didn't, I was watching guys like Jason Keller and Jeff Green battle it out, not guys like, Ricky Rudd. And now looking back on their careers, I obviously understand and appreciate what they did for the sport. But when I was 9, I couldn't grasp that was, the guy. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I didn't grasp the magnitude of the incident at that time.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dustin.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Dustin Albino. Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, Corey, for you, how vital is it bringing over Sparks with you, someone that you're familiar with?
Man, it's super important. It wasn't a package deal either. It's like some people might think or just assume, but he was the best guy available. And there were some good guys available. And just working for one of them last year, we were racing with both hands tied behind our back, and I knew we had a lot of good driving cars. A lot of the times we just didn't have the speed to show for it. So, I think that we learned some lessons. I was a brat and was bitching on the radio a lot of the times. And, like him and I were there's been a couple of weeks where we were both pissed off at each other. And I think you do need those weekends to like talk through, okay, what did I say that pissed you off? And what did you say that pissed me off? No different than Chad or Jimmy, right? Those guys weren't the best of friends a lot of the weeks. So we got those speed bumps, if you will, out of the way last year with essentially nothing bad to come of it, right? So now we have cars and tools to work with to go be a competitive race team, and we already had he's got his rookie stripes off the pit box, and I've a couple years into my Cup career pretty experienced. So I think that we have notes that the feel that I've looked for last year in those older Stewart Haas cars, that we can translate some something like that into these Ganassi cars, and we should be able to hit the ground running first couple weeks in and not miss a beat.
And whose idea was it to recreate the Alan Kwiecki picture a couple weeks ago?
So the list of good ideas that Corey has is not very long, but I think I get to put that on that short list. And I've got a couple other ideas to recreate some other good pictures coming up, none of which involves a crop top recreation of Bubba Wallace's picture. So stand by for those. But that's another cool thing about Spire Motorsports. Like, they want to do that stuff, right? When I told TJ, I'm like, yo, we'd be doing a disservice to AK if we didn't do this picture. And he's like, absolutely. So, Caitlin here took the picture, and the guys got the car ready, pushed down the hill. And it seemed like the fans certainly liked tipping the cap to Alan Kwiecki.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Kelvin with ROC Sports. Go ahead, Kelvin.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Corey, for taking the time out today. Just a couple questions. One on the changes to the schedule that NASCAR's made. What change that they made excites you most going to Spire Motorsports?
Ask that question again, sorry.
With all the changes to the NASCAR Cup schedule, what is the one change being at Spire Motorsports that excites you the most to go out and run at?
I think that I almost wish it was the same as last year. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Road courses are probably my weakness, just because I haven't done many. I didn't race many Xfinity races on the road courses. When I was running K&N, they stopped going to road courses the year I started, and they started going back again the year I stopped. So I think I've only have 4 or 5 road courses in my entire life, and they've all been in the Cup Series. So I went down to Coda early December to get some laps around there. And I think I just need a little more seat time to get comfortable with going right and left and just maintaining there and not be the weak link in terms of the competition aspect of it. And, the dirt race is going to be cool. But I think what just excites me most about the whole Spire Motorsports thing is everybody's expectations are expecting us to run as they have the past couple of years, which is not the case. So, I think that once fans start paying attention to how we're going to be running, they're going to be pleasantly surprised. It doesn't matter where we're at.
And then you said it's about 7 to 8 weeks into the season is when you'll really know where you're going to be running throughout the year. And that lands really with your timeline around the dirt race at Bristol. So how does that throw the wrench into the plans with that?
I think that's a fairly even playing field for everybody, because some guys, I saw Kurt was driving a dirt modified. Joey's going to be driving a dirt modified here down in Florida. And, guys are trying to get some dirt experience, which I have very limited of that. But there's nothing, you can drive a dirt late model, and it's not going to translate to driving a Cup car. I think just being smooth and knowing how to read a track. I mean, I'm a fan of any sort of racing. So, I've watched a lot of the MAP TV and dirt late model stuff to just understand and talk to my buddy Jonathan Davenport and pick his brain a little bit on when to move and stuff like that. So, would it be nice if I had years of dirt experience? Absolutely. But, I'm going to be smooth and keep the thing straight and be there at the end. And, it could be a top 10 day for us.
Thanks, Corey. Good luck this week. Well, next week.
Okay, we're going to take our next question. Mark Garrow, did I call on you?
Yeah, he made it.
He was good. Okay. All right. We're going to take our next question from Steven with 24/7 Sports. Go ahead, Steven.
Corey, just on the subject of numerology, you're back in the number 7 car this year, which has a bit of a history in your racing career and your family. You drove the 07 in K&N. Your dad had that number 2 and also had the 7 on his Busch car for a couple of years. Does it sweeten the deal to be back in the 7? And might that influence your plans for your throwback scheme for Darlington in May?
I mean, the number 7 was kind of in conversation when we were figuring out if we were going to do this deal or not. But it wasn't like hey, we're going to be number 7. So I know you love that number. It was, they worked out after the deal was signed, which, as much as I mean, 7's my favorite number. Yeah, as you mentioned, those 7, and my old man ran 7. My grandpa was 7'11", right? There's like so many things you can tie 7 to the LaJoie family in racing, and there's a lot of cool branding we'll be able to do around it. I like single digit numbers, but it's cool that essentially a new team, a new car, a new number is something I can embrace to start wrapping my arms around. And with obviously the throwback being one, with there's certainly a couple cool cars, obviously one being Alan Kawicki's, but there are some others we've kind of thrown around that might be a little bit of a dark horse that none of y'all are expecting for the throwback race.
Gotcha. Thanks, Corey.
All right, we're going to take our next question from Anton with ASN Media. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Corey. Hope you're doing well. So my question is about Daytona 500. Well, Daytona 500 is always about some unexpected events, and we might see some different drivers on the top of the field. So my question is, do you have any plan in mind if you are in the lead at some stage of the race?
Hopefully it's the last lap, because usually if you're up there any time before coming out of between middle of 3 and 4 and the start finish line, and we even saw Ryan Newman didn't last very well for him, and he could literally almost throw a football to start finish line. So there's 2 ways to play it, right? You got a guy like Denny who probably controls the race, or Joey, guys who make aggressive blocks and try to maintain the track position all day. And those guys are up in the mix at the end, right? But the 25 guys behind him who are, between 3rd and 12th all day, kind of mixing it up, pushing lines, and guys are ebbing and flowing with the momentum. All it takes is one mistake or a late block, and then next thing you know, you're piled in it. So I'm going to try not to be in one of those. There's usually 2 or 3 of those. And all you have to lead it, you don't have to lead it for 100 yards. All you got to lead it is for 1 inch, right? And that's what they have. They have 3 of those timing lines at the end to really know who won, and all you have to do is buy a fuzz. So crazier things have happened.
Thank you so much. Wishing you all the best for the Speed Weeks.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to take our next question, which will actually be our final question, from Tucker White. Go ahead, Tucker.
Just a card. All right. Corey, as we've seen with the last few years, especially this last season, the best driver doesn't often make the championship race or even gets eliminated around early, like we saw last season with Kevin Harvick. Now, given the fluky nature of the playoffs, how is it really the best way to determine a champion, especially when leagues like IndyCar and Formula One determine their champion through just a season-long format?
That is a can of worms question there, sir. I think we've been down this road a lot of times, and whatever the fans want, whatever keeps the fans engaged through 36 weeks throughout the year is what I want. Because when you crown a champion, 4 races to go, like in F1, right? I get that it's this guys who's most consistent from the first race of the year until the last race of the year, and those are the old, not old timer, but like traditional NASCAR fans, right? We want to crown the champion to the guy who is the most consistent from Daytona until Phoenix. But when anybody's attention span's only about, 8 seconds anymore, and all you're doing is try to get some more likes on social media, if we have to make it so the 4 fastest guys throughout 10 weeks, and one guy has a bad race the last couple times, doesn't make it in, so be it, right? I mean, I'm sure that there was Kevin Harvick looked back in Martinsville and thought about 19 million different things he could have done different to make his playoff run, right? Like, I don't sympathize for those guys. They have a bad race. They should have had some more playoff points in the bank if they were, going to have a bad race. So, I think that they have continued to tweak the playoff and the stage points and the playoff points that those guys carry through, which I think it's a good idea, right? If you win 6 or 7 regular season races, points should carry you and give you a little bit of a leg up. So, it's always going to change. You always got to fine tune it to what the fans want, because ultimately that's the lifeblood of the sport. Doesn't really matter what the small percentage of people who want to see a championship crown from 36 consecutive weeks. They want playoffs, give them playoffs.
All right, thank you.
All right, Corey, thank you so much. We appreciate your time today, and we wish you the best of luck. 500.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.